What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are having a good college football Saturday. I am watching Clemson bizarrely no-show this game against Troy so far, so we'll see what ends up happening there. But we did get a little bit of Seattle Seahawks news in the last couple of hours, so let's take a look here. It's not much. We're talking about practice squad elevations on both sides. So I'm not going to act like this is going to completely change the tenor of tomorrow's game, but it is something and it is worth discussing. And I actually think both of these elevation sets are fairly compelling. So let's start with the Seahawks side of things. Condota passes this along. The Seahawks have elevated cornerback Shaq Griffin and defensive tackle Quinton Bohanna for Sunday's game. Shaq Griffin, Quinton Bohanna, so two defensive players, cornerback, and a nose tackle. I know they list him as a defensive tackle, but for our purposes, Quinton Bohanna is a nose tackle. And I find that to be a pretty interesting pairing. Bohanna, I get. Now, I know there are going to be some people out there who say, why Bohanna instead of somebody like a Peely or a Singleton? And I don't have a great answer for that. I will admit that Peely looked better to me in the preseason than Bohanna did, but the thing to remember is that the team is looking at practice every single day for these players. They're in there in the VMAC, watching them go through drills, watching them go through plays. Way more stuff than the preseason, right? Way more stuff than what you get to see in the preseason. So there's probably something they're seeing in those training camp sessions and practices that is more robust and more meaningful than what Peely did on the field. And to a certain extent, same with J.R. Singleton. So that's the best answer I have. It's not much of an answer, granted, because it's not like I'm in there seeing Bohanna look better than them, but that's the best guess that I got. So Bohanna makes sense. We need some help at the nose tackle spot with no Hankins. So probably going to be some Jaron Reed, probably going to be some Bohanna. And of course, you're probably going to get to see some Byron Murphy there as well. Now, Shaq Griffin, little bit wondering a little bit about this one, because you look at the Seahawks cornerback situation right now. You got two starters on the outside, right? You got Witherspoon and Woolen. Those two guys start on the outside. You got Em and Worry starting at nickel, supposedly. And I do suspect that is where they're going here. Then you've got Nehemiah Pritchett, who had a pretty good preseason and seems to be making good progress. You've got Josh Jobe, who was a pretty decent player for us last year. And then you've got Darion Kendrick. So you need another cornerback with all that depth. Because remember, Darion Kendrick, first of all, Darion Kendrick can play on the outside or the inside. And it's not like Shaq Griffin is an inside corner. It's not like he's a slot dude. He's an outside corner for the most part. So it's very weird that you promote Shaq Griffin when you've got all these cornerbacks that you can work with. And meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, as many people have noted, we are very thin at wide receiver. There's no Bobo and there's no Derek Young. So we have four wide receivers. And a lot of people, myself included, thought for sure we'd elevate at least one. Ricky White, Tyrone Broden, somebody. But no, we are going at it with four wide receivers tomorrow. And look, you can play Arroyo at receiver some. He is kind of a receiver anyway, to be perfectly honest. He's a non-blocking tight end, so you can definitely line him out wide some. And it's not like Kubiak's offense does a lot of stuff with wide receivers anyway, so you can definitely survive. But no elevation is surprising. Before I go any further, I want to tell you about my friends over at Sleeper. If you're not using Sleeper this year, you are missing out. Look at all the great stuff you can get up to over there. Look at all the great picks you can make. Let's make some picks for this weekend. My entry is Jahmyr Gibbs with an anytime touchdown. I think that Green Bay run defense is going to get hurt a little bit by losing Kenny Clark. I've got Malik Neighbors. I got that one on sale. He only has to get to 64 receiving yards. He could do that in one play in that Giants-Washington game that I think will be pretty high scoring. I've also got Brock Bowers over 63.5 receiving yards. Who else is Gino going to throw the ball to? And Bucky Irving with an anytime touchdown. I think that Tampa Bay Atlanta game is going to be pretty high scoring. I say he gets in the end zone. So go check out Sleeper. Use promo code SBN and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Okay, now we go over to the other side of things, the 49ers side of things. They've got a little bit of intriguing stuff going on with their elevations as well. They have elevated per a couple of accounts, but Niners stats here. They seem like a pretty good Niners content aggregator. Linebacker Curtis Robinson and wide receiver Russell Gage. Again, on the front of Russell Gage, I think that is kind of speaks for itself, right? They need receiver help. They are very thin at receiver. We've been over it over and over again. They have problems at wide receiver. Russell Gage is somebody that could contribute significantly for them in this game. They're down to what? They've got Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings with basically no training camp, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who just got there. Russell Gage could absolutely take snaps from pretty much any of those guys. Maybe not Pearsall, but even Pearsall's kind of limited in what he can do. He's a slot receiver. So having a guy like Russell Gage around is going to be very important. And I think that that one makes all the sense in the world. But linebacker Curtis Robinson, obviously the Niners do have some issues at linebacker, but they're the issues they expected to have, right? They lost Greenlaw this offseason, and having to replace him has not been easy for them. They're doing the best they can with guys like Winters and Martin, but it hasn't been great. So elevating Curtis Robinson makes some sense. But the thing about this elevation list that might be a little bit surprising, or maybe it just speaks to their confidence, you may notice there is no running back here. And the Niners clearly feel like Christian McCaffrey is going to be good to go on game day for them to not elevate a running back. Because remember, they're already hurting a little bit at the position even without McCaffrey's issues. You've got Jordan James probably missing this game. So if there was any thought in their minds that McCaffrey was going to either not be able to play or not be able to play well, then you would expect that they would elevate a practice squad back. And the fact that they didn't tells us that they're feeling pretty good about their spot. They do have Isaac Guerrero, and they've got a couple of other guys in that deep recess of their running back depth chart. But you would imagine that they wouldn't say Isaac Guerrero is just going to play 60 snaps for us, and we're going to be cool with that. So clearly, they're feeling okay about where CMC is. Those are your practice squad elevations for the week. I usually don't spend that much time talking about practice squad elevations, but I think these are telling and these are interesting. You can learn a lot from these particular elevations. Like, I think this tells you that McCaffrey is good to go. I think that this tells you, well, I mean, it's not like it really tells us. We already know. We already know that we're concerned about the nose tackle spot, about being able to fill that out for a game. The Shaq Griffin thing, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to benefit that much from having him out there. I understand that he knows more about playing in the NFL than a guy like Pritchett. I know Pritchett is very young and inexperienced, but Shaq Griffin, I don't know if he can physically keep up. I don't know if he can physically keep up anymore the way a guy like Pritchett could. So there's a trade-off there. And if I had to choose one guy to have out there at cornerback in a big spot tomorrow with Pritchett versus Shaq Griffin, I might rather have Pritchett. But I can understand why that's a difficult one to figure out. All right. See you guys later. Streaming tonight. Huskies game, 8 o'clock. So we're looking at about 4.5 hours from now. Hope to see you guys there. Go Hawks. Bow down to Washington. See you guys soon.